Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
So, how are you feeling today? Energized? Excited about the week?
I was just telling you earlier that I am a little bit tired, and I think it's due to having my evening wine, which I'm going to cut out. So I am very conscious of my energy levels, and that feels like it's the last cab standing to change to get my energy back.
You've done everything but cut the wine. The wine is the last thing to go. It is interesting. It's something that I think we've both been thinking about because we have our Monday planning session, which is the first thing we do on a Monday, and then often followed directly by recording this podcast. We do not deliver it live. And every Monday, we sort of do an accidental energy check where we talk about how the weekend was. And I've noticed over the last few months, both of us sort of tend to feel that after the weekend, we still feel tired. We spent most of the weekend doing nothing. And yet we turn up on a Monday and we're already feeling, what did you say before? You're like, already got that, like, oh. And so we thought this week was a really good opportunity. And you've obviously had a conversation with someone else around this too, but about energy management versus time management and how we can better manage our energy so that we are working with it rather than against it or trying to change how it works.
Yeah, we do a lot of mini master classes, obviously inside our network, but equally to those organizations where we partner with them. And as part of their wider partnership offering, they get a mini master class. And what we've noticed is many have selected for the Rocks, Pebbles, Sand mini master class, which is all about time management. However, there is an energy management section in there. And what brought this front of mind for me was we delivered, I think, 2 of them in the last week. We have another one coming up.
Everyone is
That
after prioritization. Everyone's
Yeah,
thinking prioritization.
exactly. But what was interesting was I had a conversation with, this, woman, a partner at an accounting firm in Australia, and she said, "When I returned to work after having a child, I really struggled. I could not find my feet. I wanted to be partner. I had ambition to do that, but I didn't know if I could do it. And I really struggled for 2 years. And she was very close to dropping out of her career. And it all came down to time management and energy management. And I said, "How did you break through? What was the thing?" It was a coach. It was a coach that pointed out that she had to optimize her day for her energy. So, and she had it all wrong. And so that I thought, let's just dig a little bit deeper into that aspect of it based on that convo.
I would like to then reverse. I had a note for further down, but I'd like to start with it, which I think is when we're talking about energy management, I think the starting point is recognizing that energy changes at different times, but also that it's a different type of energy that we use for different things. And I think that is a really, that woman you talked about is part of a very common phenomenon. If you have taken a career break to start caregiving or do caregiving for a while, you probably feel fairly exhausted. You have this relentless job of looking after tiny people who do not do their utmost to save themselves or help themselves. So you return to work potentially thinking, oh my goodness, this is going to be somewhat of a break, and then find yourself even more exhausted. And that is often because, firstly, it's a different type of energy. Using your brain and trying to solve very complicated things and writing documents and doing all of that sort of stuff is a very different type of energy than the energy you expend trying to keep children alive. And then when you come to work, you're combining the two. And so I think that to me, that is the first thing when we talk about energy is sometimes we forget, is it to be kind to ourselves or is it just to stop and go, "Oh, I'm using different energy or more energy at the moment," and recognizing that that changes quite a lot over time?
Yeah, well, we've got a few different types of energy that we use through that use up our run our battery down. And that one that you described, I would put that in that emotional labor energy bucket in a way. And because emotional labor is that concept of difficult conversations and managing different personalities and being on. So all of a sudden you've gone from wearing trackies. I'm just picturing this woman at home and surviving with this wee little baby. And then you have to get dressed and you need to go into work and you have to present yourself. And she obviously had goals to reach the next step. And she had to look good in front of partners and she had to nail client meetings and she probably had to go out and do business development. She probably had to sit on panels and do all this stuff that she has to do. And I think of us at PowerSuit, and there are some weeks where we will have 5, 6 events. And this isn't just normal energy expenditure. We will have them either online or in person, and we have to be on. Like we have to be jazz hands. And that is emotional labor. It is energy that we are using that is above and beyond just sitting behind a spreadsheet.
That's true. Yeah. So I think that's a really nice place to start is that all of us should recognize that the types of energy we use and the amount of each type of energy we use does fluctuate. And I think sometimes we can all be guilty of just going, why am I suddenly more tired than I was? Or I'm struggling with this and this means it's a problem with me. And without recognizing actually, energy is finite. And if you are switching between types of energy, you're using different parts of your brain or body, of course you're going to be exhausted. So I think we should all cut ourselves a break. But we've come up with a couple of different ways that we can maximize that energy and use it more strategically so that you, unlike us, don't start every week kind of going, oh, why did I just spend the whole weekend feeling like I did nothing and yet I still don't feel rested, which we're both currently focused on trying to avoid doing.
Well, and I did it was interesting, we looked through our calendars this morning, and all I could see was one live welcome call tomorrow. We're welcoming our next intake into PowerSuit, and other than that, I don't see any major events, and so then you just go, "Oh, I can actually not have that level of energy this week, and we can put it into the business." Of course, everything is the business, but it's different levels of energy, and another one that came up quite frequently and we've spoken about this on a past podcast is and I'm because I'm a bit tired, I can't think of what episode it is, but it's decision fatigue. You know, we are making I think I recall it was 35,000 decisions a day, and that takes energy. And I didn't know this because when I think of people that wear the same thing every day, it's Steve Jobs, right? Like he was in the classic black turtleneck and in the jeans. I think Zucks does it as well. He's in the hoodie and the jeans every day. Probably not anymore because it's muscle t-shirts, but Obama also, he wore identical suits for and I didn't know that. I thought Obama is like just seems so capable of decision making, but he will make 1,000,000 in a day, and probably the last thing he wants is to make the decision on what to wear. But right from the minute we wake up, and especially with juggling decisions at home and with finances and with health, is just, we've already made, I think they said 17,000 by the time that seems high. That seems really weird, but by the time you get to work, you've already made a ton of decisions, and then you've got a bunch throughout the day. And of course, if you are the people that a problem solver, which many of us are, you are the one that people come to solve their problems, particularly if you're a people leader, but not always the case. So, yeah, decision fatigue can really sap your energy. So anything we can do to streamline that, like people did with clothes. Do you do anything with decision making? Like, do you block
Yes.
time or yeah, what do you
I do
do?
so much with decision making. And also, side note, Obama didn't always wear identical suits because at some stage he chose to wear a cream suit, and that was one of the most controversial
But
choices
maybe
of
because he
his
wore the same suit
presidency.
and then he did that.
It's like I'll
I
do
mean,
something slightly different. Yes, I do a lot. Firstly, I'm a huge fan. I'm not a fashionista, so I'm a huge fan of a capsule wardrobe and having a couple of pairs of pants and a couple of t-shirts and a couple of cardigans and tops that go together. And so that means that, and I'm one of those people who just pulls out the first thing that comes from my wardrobe. So having deliberately created that and then having some things that make me feel really good, some clothing items, but my day-to-day wear I have cut out. Like I'm not someone who wants to wear the same thing every day, but I'm quite happy having multiple things that go together that look different every day, but actually don't take as much of a decision. The other thing that we've done really successfully at home is separated out our household responsibilities. So Kyla is responsible for owning cooking, and that means everything from shopping through to cooking. And one of the things that I think I have found myself doing is feeling guilty and feeling like I need to participate in that. So we've had conversations where I've said, if you're doing this, I am just going to banish it from my mind. It is not something I think about. It is not something I add weight to. I will care about the other chores that I take on and run them, and you don't need to care about them. So just giving each other permission to not actually have to think or make decisions around chores and is like huge reduction. I use my calendar even for things like exercise. I know some of the biggest barriers for me with exercise is figuring out what and when to do it. So I have cut out I want to bring back weightlifting, and one of the things that I want to do is design a 5-minute routine I can do in front of the TV and have the things in front of me so I don't need to decide what activities to do or what time of the day to do them, turn on the TV, start my 5-minute routine, get it done. It removes that decision. And I block my runs in my calendar at the start of a week where I can. This week is going to be a bit of a debacle, but where I can, so that again, I'm not deciding. It just comes up and I just go do it. So I am a huge fan of cutting decisions out of your life. I also don't like it when people do that. "I don't care what we do," because you are putting a decision on someone else who is
Oh my
probably
gosh, that's such a
already.
Kiwi thing. I think I have spoken about that. "I don't mind." I'd never heard that until I came to New Zealand. "What would you like for lunch?" I'm asking my kids' friends. "I don't mind." It's like, "You probably do mind, and I mind that you don't
Yes.
mind." And
Well,
where
and
does
also
it
you're
even
just
come from?
pushing a decision onto someone else who's already
Yeah.
got enough decisions on their plate,
I know.
so.
No, I love we've done the same thing with home, in that the bulk is on Kyle, including the cooking, and then but what I noticed was when I decide to cook, oh gosh, I cook. Like,
You really do!
yeah, I made pizza from scratch on Saturday. We had tons of kids in the house, teenagers, adults, actually. Young adults in the house, and I made huge amounts of pizza from scratch, and let me tell you, I had the dough rise twice, I was like gourmet ingredients, it was excellent. So I do when I choose to, it takes the pressure off, but agree with you, but I've even joked in past podcast episodes that we divided and conquered when it came to decision fatigue with the children. Like my son, I was like, "I don't care if the dog's eating your retainer, that is not my problem. I do not need to solve that problem, go talk to dad." And so it's really helpful now that my son is the only one living at home because my decision making daughter that like my responsibility has left home, which is handy. But anyway, I that's helpful. Kyle's got the bulk of the decision fatigue at the moment. But I think one thing is worth noting, and we have a keynote speech all about how, we live in a workplace that isn't designed with women in mind. And we're very recently, a couple generations in of women in the workplace. And we talk about this chronotype mismatch in that the 9 to 5 workday is designed for men and their energy levels, as it rises over the day and ebbs in the evening, whereas women, our energy flows very differently. It can be over monthly cycles. We can be feeling amazing some weeks and not so the other weeks. But even in a given 24-hour period, I was reading that a lot of women work better in the evening. So again, these work days aren't designed with our energy flows in mind, which is interesting.
Yeah, and I think I've thought about this a lot because we often ask people, "When do you work best?" And I genuinely don't know if there is a time of day that I consistently work best, but one thing I've noticed, again, having the flexibility of not having children, that I can work anytime, anywhere. So I've never had any constraints on when to work, which has its own downsides. But what I've noticed over the last few years in my attempts to work more sustainably is if I'm finding I am banging my head against a brick wall, I don't know, an afternoon, I'm tired, I'm not feeling creative, I've got to do a piece of work. I now do one of 2 things. Either I swap around, I move 2 calendar invites around, and one of them is more admin tasks, so I just move that in and change the creative or hard thing for another time. Or secondly, I close my laptop and go out. And I've only done this a couple of times, but I'm trying to do it more. Go out to the movies, watch a TV show, have a nap, whatever it is, and just recognizing that sitting down and pretending you are being productive is one of the least productive things you can do. And if you actually just go right now, this brain is not cooperating. Go do something else because all you're doing if you try and push through is to burn yourself out. Like that's really all it achieves. And I do think it is a really hard thing to master because we are so fixated on, even if we talk about flexible work, we are still very fixated on bums on seats means productivity. And to be fair, I've never had a problem with productivity. I'm normally the most productive person in a workplace when like I just love being productive. It's something I've always spent time on. But I now am trying to be less productive or less worried about tying productivity to time and just going, great, It's not working for me now. I'm not
Energy.
optimizing. Off I go do something else. Who cares?
Energy. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. I think for many people, and we've done some polls while we were on those Zoom calls. By the way, Zoom really zaps, energy. Apparently, us processing all of the faces looking back at us zaps us more than in-person meetings, which is something interesting to note. But, asking about productive times, I would say there's a huge, huge bulk that is 9 to 11 in the morning. I think, probably a few
That's
people
you.
nodding. Yeah,
You're like,
and 9
"Everyone
to
is
11 in
like
the
me."
morning,
Although
yes.
every time you say that, everyone's like, "No, I'm not like that. I'm like 5 till 7 or
Some
3
are.
till 10."
No, but that is a common thing, is morning people. That is a great time, and I've always been a morning person, so that is a great time for morning people, but, interestingly, 2 to 4 p.m., and maybe the Spaniards are onto something with their siesta. It's usually when you're digesting your lunch, it's when you're feeling sleepy, it's when you should be doing those, what we call sand tasks, all the email and the admin and everything like that, that doesn't require a lot of brain power, so that is a really common afternoon slump for a lot of people as well.
I like that, and I think in that there is something a tip that we shared last week, with the workplace when we did this prioritization mini masterclass, is if you're someone, because quite a few people in that organization said they were 5 till 7 a.m. or something, like, they were really early risers, and I thought is I would be very curious to know if people in that bracket or people who find themselves most productive in the morning start by checking their email, because I'm like, that is the dumbest thing you should do. If you are the most productive in the morning, you shouldn't be checking your email till the afternoon.
So
So,
true.
yeah, do you but we're all sort of I think it's a routine thing that you start your work by checking email and news and stuff and like easing in. But if you start strong, you should not be doing any of that stuff in the
Oh
morning.
my
You should
gosh,
be doing
that's
it.
so true. It's like me checking it right before going to bed. It's like the 2 worst times you could possibly check it is when you go to bed and when you first wake up. So
Well, when you're firing, when you're like
that's a
maximizing
great tip.
productivity, don't waste it on email. What a
That's a great
waste.
tip. Well, I've been waking up these days and listening to, hours of Tour de France, which is very like, been my thing, and then, of course, I had to wake up and watch the Wimbledon final this morning, so that's my kind of 5 to 7 a.m. And boot camp when I've got it. So I am a morning person, but I do get another burst of energy in the evening, but I think the hot tip here is think of your magic hour for the most part, recognizing our energy ebbs throughout the month, and it's not always gonna be that set block, but block that time in your calendar, be really specific about what that block is for. What project are you working on? What are the rocks right now? Name it, just like Nat names her run time in the calendar, make it easy for yourself and block it out. So, we love the concept that calendar is God. And the only another big drain, shout out to the introverts, like, massive drain to be back
Wait,
in the
can I
office.
just finish with the
Yeah,
mismatch of energy time though?
yeah.
Because I think there's a little bit more in that if you we sometimes feel like we have to work in a particular way. And I think what you just said of like, if you're a 2 block person, be a 2 block person and be okay with that. Take a longer lunch break. Like take a lunch break. Do the things that you need to do to rest in the middle of the day. If you are someone like me that I would rather just work 8 hours solid and like have a bigger break at the other end of the day, I've been experimenting with recently starting at more like 7 or 8, and I'm very relaxed on it. Like if I wake up firing at 7, I just get straight into it. If I'm not feeling that same like, oh, I really want to start now, I'll start at 8. And so like just really I think the tip for that energy cycle thing is experiment. Like see, you can try over the course of a week. This week you might want to take a slightly longer lunch break or force yourself to take a lunch break. Next week, you might want to start half an hour earlier and see if that switches your day a little bit. Like we can play with these and just see what works for us. And recognizing a lot of people have a lot more strict schedules, then you can still fiddle with 15 minutes on either side or try a different like do you once the kids are in bed, pick up and do an hour at night. Could that give you an extra hour? And like we're allowed to play with these things and see what
Yes.
works.
What I would like to so I was just gonna shout out to the introverts, recognizing that that return to work must be really hard for them. Like, I'm thinking of the developers that would wear their headphones all day, every day because of the focus that's required with coding and problem solving in that way, and, that just must be such an interesting dynamic, having to return to office, make decisions again in terms of commute and what you're wearing, and then go in and sit on a seat and wear your headphones all day. and to have to expend that energy in meetings and on Zoom calls, I can, real hearts go out to those introverts because that energy is super sapping for you. Just wanted to note that. But I think two things. Number one, task switching is a big energy drain. We've chatted about it already in a past podcast episode. And I think the biggest thing, I think it takes what, 20, 25 minutes to refocus on a task. And so that micro distraction that you're trying to give yourself with emails, bad idea. So it could be just looking out the window, it could be, standing up and taking a walk, whatever that might be. The task
Could be starting
switching.
the cooking for the
Yes.
dinner if you're working from home. Like, if you need to think something through, sometimes the worst place to do it is in front of a screen. So if you get up and go, "Well, my task is trying to figure this thing out. I'm gonna go do my walk now, or I'm gonna walk around the block or start the cooking," or whatever it is, you can actually get that mental break without switching, which actually kills your productivity.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. The task switching, I think going from one task to another. So maybe just start to notice what happens when you need a micro break because our brains sometimes can only focus for 20, 25 minutes at a time. But if you move to something else that's like that sand, like the emails and the news updates, it genuinely, when you're looking back to your focus time, hopefully you're blocking 90 minutes to 2 hours in your calendar for real focus time. That's the ideal to work towards. To go from a task to a task is really unproductive. Do you find yourself doing anything with task switching, like when you get distracted? What are your bad habits?
My bad habits, I'm very much a we have a news site in New Zealand that I think is probably, like you say, everyone starts a lot of people, like, have energy in the morning. I think a lot of Kiwi check this website unintentionally unconsciously, it's the go-to. Quickly go to this news site and see it because they get huge amounts of traffic. And obviously they have great news as well. And I think so for me, it's checking a news site or a scroll on Instagram, or sometimes I'll check my inbox, but I do try really hard not to. But I think that also the other one is I am working on this at the moment. I put 15-minute blocks in when I have really busy days, so I need to remind myself to email someone, or and I try and group those blocks, but if one of those tasks takes longer than 15 minutes, it starts going to the next one, and that's where my task switching becomes really stressful because 'cause I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I'm behind on these 3 little tasks," and they slotted in between because 'cause they're not sand, but they are definitely pebbles at best. I needed to slot them in around other things, so that's when I start madly try to jump between things and have to remind myself to just get the first one done. And if it takes half an hour next time, remember to budget half an hour to do that thing and try not to be unrealistic about the amount of time and then end up jumping around
Yeah.
because that's
I
killer.
I really use my notes for that. I don't know if it's the best thing. I know people have all sorts of things like Notion and Trello and stuff, but for me, it's my notes, and I'll drop things in there, and then it'll move away to our planning calendars. But I would say my big ones, and I've admitted this, is email and LinkedIn, and it's like they add no value. They just get you into something else, and so and the news. I do scroll the news quite a bit, but yeah, that's stuff that I've gotten better at, but I think, this is a good reminder for me to double down a little bit more, on that one. So, yeah, great.
I think,
What's
and side note, LinkedIn is valuable, but I think it's that unconscious scrolling that's not valuable. Like if you're using LinkedIn intentionally and building relationships and building personal brand, fabulous, but it's yet another social media site that you can find yourself wasting hours commenting, liking, doing stuff that really doesn't add any value, or just scrolling and feeling bad that you're not.
for me, it's scrolling, and then I look at notifications, and it's like, it didn't add anything. That's not when I, like.
It's the unconscious it's the unconscious habits that I think can be real energy drains and can, yeah, waste a lot of time. The other one, the last thing that I wanted to cover, because I think, what we've decided partway through this is next time we will cover some ways to add energy, and I think that should be a whole podcast in itself because there's a bunch of them that we sometimes overlook. But the last thing that I wanted to cover for this side is, and I've talked about this with a lot of different people, is if you think about work as a roller coaster, and sometimes we have to really ramp up, and you've got a deadline coming up, or there's in sort of emergency or something that you couldn't predict, and everyone's sort of all hands on deck. We are very good at ramping up, but we're not very good at ramping back down. And so what we end up doing is staying in this heightened state and not giving ourselves permission to ramp back down. So an example might be, and I have a friend who does a lot of consulting. She has a couple of weeks where there's just like fire after fire to put out. The week after that, she tries to be a lot more conscious about taking bigger breaks to go out for a walk and just easing back down into a normal work state. And we've discussed this before, but Parkinson's law is a big one on this. So, Parkinson's law is effectively that we work expands to fill the time we have available for completion, which is why people say if you need something done, give it to a busy person because that person will get it done really quickly. And so I think it kind of ties circles all the way nicely back to where we started is being a little bit more reflective and intentional about the stuff to go this week, which is kind of what we did at the start of this week. This week is not a big event week. We actually have a bit of space this week. So use this week as a down week and be okay with that. Like, don't feel like we need to suddenly jam in a lot of stuff to make ourselves feel more productive by being busy. We actually can have a week where actually it might take us a little bit longer to get something done and just like do be okay with that because the end result otherwise is that we do expand work to fill these gaps. And that means we constantly have this feeling of energy drain and burnout when actually we could just say, I just don't have as much on this week.
Yeah. We don't always have to answer with busy, um,
Well,
'cause no one likes
actually
that.
protect those blocks. Like, just go, this week is not as busy. Great. Like, I don't have to pretend or build work into it or add work or and I find those weeks are the worst for me in terms of energy drain because like you were away a couple of weeks ago and I had 2 days where I had big blocks of time to do something because I just didn't have other things on. And it took me those entire blocks of time to do something that would usually take me 15 minutes to do. And I was like, if I'd been smarter, I would have gone budget the normal amount of time to do it and then budget 2 hours to go for a walk, and I would have had the same amount of stuff done, but I wouldn't have felt like I was banging my head against a wall all day.
Interesting. No, that's good. Good insight. Well, I would love to end just very quickly. I don't have a quote today, but for the energy adding, I'll have a quote. They were cheesy. I looked at a bunch and then I was like, no, these are all cheesy. They were not good enough for our listeners. But I would love for everyone to make that link between time management and energy management. So just notice, what do we call it? Your magic hour. Notice your magic hours as they flux, probably, possibly. Think about when you do your best work. And also just take note of the energy drains. We talked about a few of them. Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you going back to back Zoom meetings? Are you task switching? What are you doing when you need a little micro break? Are you noticing, conflict that's really draining you or needing to be on and start to think about the stuff that drains you? And then we will do another app on what to do about it and how to kind of add energy back into your life.
Oh, what a dream.
Amazing. Um, we're a dream.
Adding
Check out,
energy.
yeah, check out powersuit.com, everyone, and we will catch ya in the next one. Bye.